Hello and welcome to Twin Talk. This is Angie and I'm here with my sister Joy. And today we're going to be talking about the book Through My Eyes by Tim Tebow. This was a New York Times bestseller and it was written in 2011. So just real quickly, I'm going to read a little bit from the inside cover just so to give you a clue what it's about. Over the course of the past 5 years, Tim Tebow has established himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of college football and a top prospect in the NFL. During that time, he has amassed an unparalleled resume, winning 2 BCS national championships, becoming the first sophomore in NCAA history to win the Heisman Trophy, and, in the face of massive public scrutiny, being drafted in the first round of the NFL draft by the Denver Broncos. Now, in Through My Eyes, Tebow writes about life as he chooses to live it, revealing how his Christian faith, his family values, and his relentless drive to succeed have molded him into the person and the athlete he is today. So, Joy, what comes to your mind when you hear the name Tim Tebow?
Well, I automatically think, I think he's good looking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's handsome. Football player, very outspoken about his faith, very godly Christian man. Basically.
Yeah, I thought it bold, competitive, really, like you said, his high morals, he's very determined, he's faithful, he's a very kind person, and he's also he's about justice. After I read the book, so he's basically everything. I had this you have a picture in your mind of who he is, but once I read the book, I was like, okay, take all those qualities and magnify them times 10.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, this guy's incredible. I mean, I'm just gonna say that off the top. I feel like a person like him comes along like once every generation.
Yeah, he is definitely a role model for for his generation. Well, for everybody. But yeah, I think men like him are few and far between.
Yes, I totally agree. And I can't remember if I read this somewhere, but it's so true. Men want their sons to be like him. Moms want their daughters to marry him, and little boys want to be him. So, and even in the book, he said, it's funny, he said that he would have men come up to him and say, God told me you're supposed to marry my daughter. And he was like, oh, well, that's funny. He didn't tell me that.
Oh, right.
So I thought that was funny.
That is funny.
So anyway, just my general impression of the book, and just, well, I need to ask you, we've determined you did not read this book, right?
No, I have read a book about Tim Tebow, and I did look it up. I listened to it on Audible, and now I can't remember the name. Shaken. Okay. Yes, that's the one I read.
Okay, so this book, Through My Eyes, it's basically from his birth and through his high school and college.
Okay.
And then Shaken kind of talks about his NFL career.
Oh, okay. So now I wish I would have read this one first.
Yeah, and this one, they're both good, don't get me wrong, but this one's, to me...
And you've read both of them?
I have read both of them, yeah.
Okay.
So this one that we're getting ready to talk about is more about his life and his career in high school and college.
Okay.
And Shaken is really more of his spiritual journey. It's more about his faith.
Right.
Yeah, and Shaken, most people know
Shaken's the one I read.
He got cut from several NFL football teams, and he talks about how he reacts in the face of adversity. So
yes.
I thought it was pretty good too. So my general impression of this book, I thought it was pretty good. I really kept thinking over and over, okay, if you are a Florida fan, and if you're a Christian, those are the type of people who's going to like this book, okay? But the reason that I liked it was because he kept talking about two things, college football and his Christian faith. Okay, well, not just college football, but college football in the South. And those are two things that you and I can highly relate to.
Yes.
So can you, okay, so, I was just thinking, okay, we have listeners from Germany, Spain, Netherlands. I mean, we've got some, can you just kind of briefly explain to people who might not understand our American culture of football, especially football in the South? Can you just kind of give us a little brief summary of what football in the South means to us?
I would just tell, especially if you're from Europe, I would just equate it to what soccer is to a lot of Europeans, football is to people in the South.
Or even Americans,
or in general. I just feel like I know that people in the northern part of the United States, they're big fans, but it seems to almost get radical down here in the South. It's just a big deal wow. We've got some kids in the house.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're from, but usually you root for, for the college that's in your hometown state. That's not always the case, but it's pretty fanatical. Once you've got your team, you're a diehard fan, you follow them to the end, whether they're having a winning season or a losing season, and people go nuts at the ball games, and it's a lot of fun, though.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun to be in that culture and to follow that team.
Yeah, now don't get me wrong. There are people that we know who could take it or leave it. There's a lot of people who don't even like football.
Yeah.
But there are thousands and thousands of people who love it. It's almost like a religion.
Mm-hmm.
And have had this discussion before. We were talking in my anthropology class one time, and my professor started talking about the similarities between religion and football. And I'm not going to get into it now, but it was actually pretty interesting. The traditions, there's lots of traditions in religion and in sports, but anyway, whether it's little league, high school, or college, it doesn't matter. People get fanatical about it right here. And then of course we Arkansas Razorbacks, who we root for, are in the Southeast Conference. Well, the Southeast Conference is considered one of the best, if not the best, conference in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So we're and I'm not saying that we've had our
Maybe
struggles.
Not national football, not NFL, but
okay. Well,
in the
I'm sorry, I said that wrong, didn't I?
In the world of college sports,
yes,
SEC, Southeastern Conference is considered one of your stronger conferences.
Yes, and unfortunately, we're in a very dominant conference, so our Arkansas Razorbacks, we do struggle at times, but we do have our shining moments. So now, since we're talking about this, I also want to talk just briefly about what it's like teaching in a football town. So can you kind of tell our listeners just a little bit about the town of Greenwood, Arkansas, and its relationship to high school football?
Well, I just noticed the other day as I was driving into Greenwood, there's a new billboard up that says it's a farmer's bank. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It says, "We love Titletown."
Oh, yeah. That's been there for a while.
Okay. I guess I just noticed it. And Titletown says it all. I mean, I don't know how Greenwood has 8, 10 football state championships.
Yeah, I meant to look it up before and I forgot a lot.
And they've had players go on to play, college football. I don't know if they've had any to actually go on to pro, but anyway, it's a football town, meaning in sports, a lot of the emphasis is on football. Now there's a really good girls basketball team, and the girls have won state in basketball many times. They've won state in volleyball many times. There's cross country and there's golf championships, but it does seem like as far as the people getting into it and the crowd turnout,
yes,
football is kind of the emphasis.
Me too. Now, we grew up in a town that was, now Greenwood, don't get me wrong, it's a small town of about 9,000 people.
Actually, right at 10 now.
Right at 10.
We're 50 people away from being 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the town we grew up in has pretty much remained around between 500 to 700 probably.
Yeah, it's at 707 right now. 707. That's what the last census was. Yeah.
Okay. So, I just think it's so interesting. I love watching the Hackett Hornets play football, and I want to make this real clear. I enjoy watching both. I enjoy watching Greenwood, and I enjoy watching Hackett. Now, I got to go to a few Hackett games last year, and let me tell you something. You talk about fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you've got these boys. You talk about scrappy, gutsy. You've got kids who are playing offense and defense because they don't have many kids on their team. For people who don't understand, that is huge. You are literally heaving on the sidelines because you're so tired. You just ran a ball 50 yards, and then you turn around, okay, go back in on defense and go tackle somebody. That's extremely difficult.
Great, because I did teach at Hackett for 9 years. I have great admiration for those football players because you're right. Many of them played both ways. They played offense and defense. And then it would be frustrating because they would get a really, really good player, and that player would end up transferring to somewhere like Greenwood because they thought that they would have more scouts watching them and better college opportunities. So I just know how heartbreaking it was to see so many of those good players head to Greenwood. Yeah. And no, there's always rumors, they got recruited. No, they didn't. I know Well, I can only think of one off the top of my head, but I talked to him personally. I said, "Is it true that you got recruited?" He said, "No, my dad's making me go." He says, "I'm going to get a lot better scholarship opportunities if I'm playing for a bigger school."
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, you and I personally know 5 or 6 who left Hackett to play for Greenwood. Now, this was way back in the day. This isn't any
long
time ago. But all of them were some of the best players for Greenwood.
I know, some of the MVPs.
And so we watched kid after kid that we knew leave Hackett, go to Greenwood, and that was heartbreaking. And
it's heartbreaking for the other kids because they're like, "Oh, we're going to have a great team this year," and they're working their behinds off and 2-a-days and all that just to see a star player move. But once again, every case I've ever known of, it was more the parent. It wasn't, to my knowledge, there wasn't any recruiting going on. It was that parent wanting that kid to have more exposure.
Yeah. And I guess the reason you may be wondering why I'm talking about Hackett and Greenwood, these small towns. What I wanted to bring out was, whether you're at Greenwood, they are like, I can't even begin to explain to people how good this team is. Okay, they are like a well-oiled machine. Matter of fact, I was thinking about, I don't know why this came up, but I was thinking like Rocky when he versed the Russian.
Yeah.
And so when you play Greenwood, it's like the other team's like Rocky. They're like the underdogs, and Greenwood is like the Russian.
Yeah.
Whatever his name was. Or even, remember Dodgeball, Average Joe's, and
Yeah.
Globo Gym. I just kept thinking of all these comparisons. But, I mean, you go to Greenwood, they've got a beautiful field. They've got AstroTurf. It always looks brand spanking new. Their uniforms are pristine. And then you go to Hackett, and the field's not, of course, they don't have the means to keep the field as nice. It's nice. They're doing a great job. I'm just saying they don't have the money, and they don't have the huge 10,000 square foot practice field and all this. But my point is, whether you're at Greenwood or Hackett or anywhere in the United States, it's the love of football that keep these kids coming back and playing, and people fill the stands to watch these kids.
And Rick Jones is named to this. He's not there anymore. He went to Missouri, I think, to coach college football. But when Rick Jones was there, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. But they said it's like he would take players that maybe weren't as big and strong and fast, but he would play to the other team's weaknesses. He knew who to put in what position, and he knew how to take. He knew how to take what he had and win with it, and that's what made him so successful.
And I'm glad you brought up that, because that was a point I was getting ready to make. You think, oh, this team's awesome. You're going to go see these big, huge boys and these big, huge linemen. No. They might have a handful of them, but I'm telling you, for the majority of Greenwood's players, I swear, they're no bigger than you and I.
Right.
I mean, I am amazed when they...
I can't tell you how many times I've been at a Greenwood football game, and when you see the lineup, like pound per pound, you're like, we're going to get squashed. Yes. I mean, we're smaller, but they're
in better shape, they're quicker, and he plays to the other team's weakness.
And they didn't make the mistakes that the other teams
Yes,
made.
they're very smart. They're coached so well that size does not matter.
Yes.
And it's absolutely, I wish everyone listening could go watch a game. Now, I will say this. They are so good that sometimes if the other team's mediocre, the games can be boring.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it might be 50-0 at halftime sometimes.
I cannot tell you how many times I will go and watch the first half, and then they're blowing out the opponent, and then I'll watch, of course, I love my band kids. I'll watch the kids perform in the band. I'll watch the cheerleaders, the dance team, and then I'll just leave because it's a blowout. Yeah. And you're right, it gets just kind of boring.
Yeah, and like when I got to see Hackett last year, we were all literally several times we were just on our feet, just yelling our brains out, because we were like just they'd throw a long pass, and you're just wanting that kid to catch it so badly, and it was just so much fun.
I'm going to try to make some Hackett.
I just thought
Hackett games is. Yeah. And another thing, and I felt bad when I did teach at Hackett. I a lot of times I was taking money for the gate, and so I didn't get to see the game until like third quarter.
Right.
So.
Okay, well, anyway, I thought that was kind of fun just to talk a little bit just about and we love football.
Yeah.
But, let me ask you a question. Why do you think, back to Tim Tebow, why do you think some people don't like him?
I thought about this. I think people are jealous. They're like, wow, this guy's kind of walking the walk. He's talking the talk, but he's also walking the walk. I know.
But I tell you what, I remember when he was playing against Arkansas, and I remember, at the time, I had just started watching the Razorbacks, okay? So I really didn't know a lot. I still don't know a lot about football, to be honest with you, but I really just wasn't that into it. But I kept hearing all you guys talking about Tim Tebow, and I kept thinking, what? Who is that, and why is he getting so much recognition? Well, next thing I know, he's been nominated for the Heisman Trophy. Well, so has Darren McFadden. Well, Darren McFadden was our Superman. Okay?
Yeah, he was a running back for
D-Mac.
Arkansas.
Yes, he was a running back for Arkansas. He was just unbelievably good. He was awesome. Well, so they're both at the Heisman. We're all watching the Heisman, I remember. And I am just praying, just please let D-Mac win. I wanted him to win so badly. Well, Tim Tebow won instead of Darren. And Tim Tebow gets up, gives his acceptance speech, and the first thing he says is, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so grudgingly, I'm like, okay, how can you not like this guy? I grudgingly began to like Tim Tebow at that point after I heard his acceptance.
One of the complaints about Tim Tebow, I've heard several people say this, they didn't feel like he deserved the Heisman because they said their opinion is he wasn't that great. He had such a great offensive line around him.
Oh, right.
And he had such good players around him that they made him look better than he actually was.
Gotcha.
And that he didn't deserve the credit because he did not really.
They made things easy for him.
Yeah, they made things look super easy for him. So I don't know if I buy into that argument or not, but I will say that's the only argument that I might halfway go, okay, well, if I went back and watched footage and watch the film, maybe I'd agree with you. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. He won. He's a good guy. I think God blessed him with that award and put him in the spotlight, and now he has a platform.
Yes.
Heisman Trophy winners, they have a huge audience. People are going to listen to what they say.
Exactly. Okay, so just real quickly, we're going to get into the book, and I'm just going to, like I said, I do recommend people read this book. It's a good book. But there were some things that I didn't know, and so I'm just going to touch on just a few things that I thought were really interesting in the book. I don't want to say too much because I want people to read the book, but the first thing, I think I had heard this but had forgotten, but so Tim Tebow's dad was a missionary in the Philippines, and this has been going on. He'd been a missionary before Tim was ever born, and they were watching the Jesus film, and all of a sudden his dad got this huge burden on his heart about all the children that were being aborted. And he prayed to God and said, if you will give me a child, I'll name him Timothy, and he will become a preacher for you. And so, and this is all because he's upset about abortions. Well, guess what? His mom gets pregnant. Guess what? She goes to the doctor. They tell her, you need to get an abortion. And isn't that ironic?
Yeah. He must have told that story in the book I read as well, because I remember that story.
He did.
Maybe he told it in both books.
They basically told her that she had a mass of fetal tissue or a tumor, and while she prayed, and they prayed about it, and they said, no, we're giving this to God. And so she went ahead and gave birth, and the doctors told her it was a miracle birth because he was attached to a small piece of placenta, and they couldn't believe he survived. So even the beginning of his life was a miracle. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I always thought that the story of his birth was very interesting. Yeah. That they told her that she should abort him.
So his childhood, it was kind of pretty much what you expect. Okay, take a competitive child and then multiply him times 10. Okay, he was super, and one of the funny stories they told was he was in T-ball, and a kid was running from third to home, and he was playing short. So the batter hits the ball to him. He stops it. He runs the kid down going to home, tags him out, and the coach says, Tim, that was a great play, but why didn't you throw it to the catcher? And he says, because, Coach, he can't catch. He don't know how to catch. And that was his whole thought process. Right. He said all through T-ball, he was like, if he knew a kid couldn't catch, or if they couldn't do it, he would just make the play for them because he couldn't stand to lose. Right. Yeah, so he was like, it didn't matter what it took, he was going to win. All right, so there's just one paragraph I'm going to read out of the book, and it kind of sums up, and this is Tim Tebow's words, this kind of sums up to me his life. Somewhere in there, in all the time spent with the stretchy surgical bands or the competitive streak in T-ball or the endless hours of batting practice, I realized that I never wanted to fit in. I mean, I was only 5, so that exact phrase, fit in, never occurred to me. But as I look back now, it was clear that very early on, the seeds of that concept began taking root and sprouting in me in everything I did. As I got older and heard kids talk about wanting to fit in or wanting to be normal, I never quite understood why they felt that way. what's the point of being normal? That sounds average to me. And I never felt like I was created to be average.
Aw, I think God put that in his heart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the whole book. That's him. He's always above and beyond, he always exceeds expectations and everything. And did you know that there was actually a high school documentary that was made about him called The Chosen One?
No.
That was something I
don't
learned.
guess so.
I learned that in the books. So I didn't realize that in high school he was getting so much recognition. So ESPN made a documentary about him, and he said it was kind of embarrassing because he was getting all this attention.
Oh, maybe I do. It's been so long since I've read that Tim Tebow book, but now that you talk about him being embarrassed, it seems like I do remember him saying that.
Yeah. Now, one of the most interesting parts of the book to me was he talked about the recruiting process for the colleges who were recruiting him, okay? So, naturally he talked about all these coaches that were calling him. Some of them would actually come and visit in person. But he said everywhere he went, if he went for a visit, they purposely would surround him with pretty girls. And I thought, let's put the bait out there.
Of course.
And so in the end, he narrowed his choices. And he had a really hard time because he said there was several colleges he was interested in. But in the end, he narrowed it down to 2 teams. Do you remember which 2 teams were the final teams?
No, we're talking about college.
For college.
I guess Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And would it have been LSU or Alabama?
It was Alabama and the University of Florida.
Okay.
So at the time in Alabama, it was Mike Shula. And in Florida, it was Urban Meyer. So this is the part so I've heard a lot about Alabama fans, and they are over the top. But once I read this book, I realized how over the top they are. So Alabama fans, when they knew he was interested in their school, they started coming to his football games in high school.
Oh, that's
Can you believe that? So they would come, and they would have big signs up in the stands, and they would have their Alabama stuff on, and they would say things like, I forget, some of the signs were real funny, like, come see us, or come to our home, or whatever it was. It was like, we want you to play for us. So anyway, they would be at his at his games, and they would be chanting his name up in the stands. I thought that was really funny. So when it came right down to it, it was the day they were having a media day, and they were going to announce his decision of who he was going to play for. Well, I didn't know this. He said even up to the last hour, he did not know who he was going to pick. He was so torn. So I just wanted to tell our listeners this funny, because this is really a funny, interesting story. So he just said he just battled and battled with indecision. I love Coach Shula. No, I like Coach Meyer. No, I want to go to Bama. No, I got to stay here in Florida. And he just went back and forth. So at the very last minute, he's like, okay, I've just got to pick one. He's like, so he calls Coach Shula, and he's crying, and he's like, I really wanted to play for you. And I'm sure he didn't sound like that. And he's like, I really want to play with you, and I love you, and I thank you for spending so much time, but I think I'm going to play for Florida. And he's like, and this was so classy. Sheila says, Tim, like, get yourself together. Mm-hmm. Listen, I told you when I was recruiting you that no matter what decision you make, I will always love you. I will always root, because they'd spent a lot of time together at this point. He said, I will always root for you, and I think that you are going to make a big impact in the world of football and on the lives of others.
Wow.
So
very classy.
Very classy. So he gets off the phone with him, and he decides to call Coach Urban Meyer before he makes the announcement, so he'll know what's going on. And he's thinking, oh my gosh, Coach Shula is so classy. I think I've made a mistake. He's like, his answer just
keeps second guessing.
Yes, he's like, I think I've made a mistake. And he tells his mom, should I call him back? And so she's like, no, you've already made your decision. So he calls Urban Meyer. Well, Urban Meyer hadn't heard from him all day, so he had been out driving in his car, pacing around. He was real nervous, wanting to know his decision. So Urban Meyer went and sat on the 45-yard line at the stadium at Florida, because they say that's his lucky number, 45. And so Tim calls him on his phone. He's like, Coach, I've made a decision. Well, Coach Meyer's phone was almost dead, and the call drops.
Oh my gosh!
And
I
so
don't remember that.
Before
That's
he even got
funny.
his answer out to him, they lost connection. So Urban Meyer had to hear the announcement through the media.
Oh, I didn't know. If I've heard that story, I have forgotten.
Yeah.
That is so
So
funny.
he said he's like, then I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, I didn't even get to tell him on the phone. And he said, come to find out later, he hadn't charged his phone and his battery went dead. And so he makes the announcement. He said, I literally at the last second was like, just had to push out the words Florida. And he said, even after I made the announcement, I still did not feel a real peace because he was so torn between the two. The other thing in the book to me that was so funny was there was a particular game where they were going to play LSU, and he talked about the crazy LSU fans. Okay, get this. Someone that had Tim Tebow's number started giving it out to LSU fans. They were and so they would be in a bar, and they would stand up and go, listen, everyone, this is Tim Tebow's personal cell phone number. Call him and give him a hard time.
Oh,
and so he started getting phone calls. He said it was nonstop. He said his phone would sit and buzz and buzz. Mm-hmm. And he said the calls were either crazy. He's like, there was someone that was just saying something absolutely crazy. Mm-hmm. He said they were of sexual nature, mm-hmm. or they were violent. They were threatening mm-hmm. violence. And he said his teammates, and he said he didn't have time to change his phone number or get a new phone because, they were right in the middle. They were preparing for LSU that mm-hmm. week at LSU. Mm-hmm. And he said his teammates were getting really mad, and one of them finally picked up his phone and just let someone have it. And he said, yeah, to this day, whoever that was, I don't know, but that wasn't me that did that.
Right.
So then when they finally arrive at LSU, and he said the place was packed, and he said someone, as they're getting off the bus, someone threw a beer at Coach Meyer. And he said all the parents were standing there as they get out. He said he thought there was getting ready to be just a big mm-hmm. riot and take place. But anyway, what's real funny is he just had a horrible, horrible week because of the LSU fans. But when it was all said and done, guess what he said? He said, I really want to thank the LSU fans because they made that week so much fun. He said it ended up being one of the most memorable games that we've ever played.
Right.
So
That's funny.
Yeah. And so you were talking about earlier about him having such an influence, using the college football as a platform. Mm-hmm. Well, one really interesting fact that I got from the book was during one of the games he wore John 3:16 on his eye black, and after the game he was told that 94 million people searched for it during and immediately following the national championship
game. That was
game.
one of my favorite. That was all, and I know you read both books, so I guess you're kind of quoting from both books.
I think he said some of the stuff in both. This was definitely in this book.
Okay,
he may have said that in another book.
If I had to pull out one thing out of the whole book that I read about him, that fact right there. Can you repeat that? Because I love that.
Yes, during the national championship game, he wore John 3:16 on his eye black, and 94 million people searched for it during and immediately following the national championship game.
Okay, here is what is so astounding to me. 94,000 people. 94 million people.
Because this is the national championship game.
Right. 94 million people Googled John 3:16. Mm-hmm. Here's what's astounding that I can't grasp this. That's like the first verse you learn as a kid. That people would have to look it up because they don't know what it says.
I agree.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. John 3:16. I mean, we can just repeat it.
Yeah.
I can just say it because we have known that since we could walk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that in a braggy way. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that's just something I take for granted. The fact that people had to Google it because they didn't know what it said, But hey, how amazing, how wonderful that many people now know or at least have read that verse.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but in his second book, in Shaken, there's another statistic, and it was definitely of God. It was a miracle, and I'm hoping to do Shaken one day. It'll be a short podcast because it's not.
We should have just done the two books together.
Yeah, but if we do get a chance to do Shaken, I want to talk to you about this statistic. To me, it was a miracle that happened when he wore another verse during one of his games in the NFL. Okay, so and then the side to me, the saddest part of the book, I got emotional when I read it, was when he was running out the tunnel for the last time.
Yeah.
And he said that all the seniors were getting their names called one at a time, and he was the last senior to be called out. And he said, I was just going to go give the coach a hug and go out and play the game as normal. He said, but emotions just overtook him, and he said next thing he knew, he was just crying. And because he said, I was thinking of all the film we watched, all the practices, all the times I sat in Coach Meyer's office, all the times we hung out at his house. It's all these memories just came flooding. And can you imagine all those times you ran out in front of the crowd of all those fans, those Gator fans, and then this is your last time? I think that would be
It'd
so
be very emotional.
Yeah,
Very
and then
tough.
It's kind of sad because he kind of went out on a disappointing note in that the second championship game he was in, they did play Alabama, and they lost to them. And apparently at this time, Nick Saban was coaching. And he said he was so disappointed because they lost the game. But after the game, this was so fascinating to me. Nick Saban came up to him and said, Tim, I just want you to know that you played your heart out and you played a great game. He said, in all this year, you were our motivation. And Tim's like, what do you mean? He was like, and Nick Saban said, I kept telling my players, you need to play with the same determination Tim Tebow does. You need to have the same work ethic he does. For Nick Saban to say that, for people who don't know, Nick Saban is like the godfather of college football, and he's like one of the most winningest coaches. And for him to be telling his team,
highest paid coach, and
highest paid coach, and for him to be telling his players, you guys need to be more like Tim Tebow, that in my book, that's the highest compliment you can get.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's pretty much where the book ends. He is drafted to the Denver Broncos. And just a side note, I gave it 4 Tebows. You know, like I said, this is kind of one of those books. I feel like it's very specific because of the content. I mean, I think anybody can enjoy it because it's a book of faith and inspiration. So I recommend it to everybody. But if you are a Florida Gator fan, you are definitely going to enjoy it. And it's going to bring back a lot of memories. So now we're getting ready to close, but I thought it would be fun to talk about college traditions before we close.
Okay.
And I don't know if I think we've mentioned this before on our podcast, but you actually attended the University of Arkansas back in around 94 in that area. So can you tell us, were there any traditions that you remember as a college student while you were attending there?
Yeah, and I think we talked about this the other day, and I get depressed every time I think about it, but when I went to school there, basketball was the big thing. They were a basketball school. They actually won the national championship in 1994, the year I went there. And, 2 of my friends and I actually got to go attend that game in North Carolina. And football was big too, but it just wasn't on the scale as basketball. But anyway, I lived in a dorm, it was called Gregson Hall, and it was at the top of Dixon Street in downtown Fayetteville. And Gregson Hall actually was on the top of a hill, and you could look out of our rec room windows and see the football stadium. So every Saturday when there was a game, you could hear the band, you could hear the crowd going crazy. But here's the depressing part. None of my friends were into football.
Oh my gosh,
Not one of my friends. And we had this huge, what we called the rec room, and there was a big screen TV and chairs and couches. And I'll never forget, there were several Saturdays that I would just kind of sit there and look out the window, and I could see the stadium. You could see the back of the stadium. So you're not really seeing the people, but you could, every time there was a big play, the crowd would go crazy. And I'm just kind of sitting there looking, and all my friends are sitting there watching MTV, like Beavis and Butthead was big back then. And I remember feeling really down. Because and now looking back, I should have just gone to the game. Who cares if I went by myself? I would have been in the student section. I might have even seen people I know. But I remember being stuck there in that rec room while they were playing literally, 100 yards from me. And I'm wanting to say, I think Barry Lunny Jr. or Clint Sterner. I'm getting one of those guys was the quarterback at the time, I remember. And Brandon Burlsworth was there. And I think of all those games I missed just because I didn't have anybody to go with. I should have called you.
Yes.
And said,
yes,
I don't know why it never dawned on me. Angie was already married at this time, and I guess I always thought of you as kind of having your own life. And kind of separate from mine.
Honestly, I'm just sitting
But
here.
looking back, why didn't I call you?
I know people can't see me, but I'm just sitting here shaking my head. And that's so depressing to me, what you just said. I mean,
you would have loved to go.
Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking, what is up with these kids that they didn't want to go to? Even if they weren't that great. I mean, go, my gosh, go have fun. Go to the football game.
I know. But they had like zero interest.
Yeah. And that just goes back to the point, I guess, that just because you and I love it so much, you know, and one thing we haven't mentioned is our family loves college football. Our family is gaga. Like, we'll be watching all the games this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we could go back in time, I would have come up there on the hill to Fayetteville, Arkansas. We would have been to what's the name of that stadium?
Donald Reynolds
Don Reynolds Stadium. Yeah, we would have went to the stadium. We would have watched us some football. Dang, that's
the one
just
good
such
redeeming thing, I guess I should say, is once I graduated, and I did date this guy who was a big Razorback fan. We went to a lot of football games together. And so that was a lot of fun. And then I'll just remember there's this parking lot down by the stadium. We called it the Pit. Matter of fact, I didn't have a parking pass, and I would park my car down there many, many times. But of course, you had to move it on game day. But it was called the Pit. And to get from the parking lot, the surrounding parking lots, to the stadium, you had to walk through, quote unquote, the Pit. And everybody's has their tent set out, they're barbecuing. Of course, everybody's drinking their beer and stuff. But it was so much fun because people take pride in these tents, and they're decorated to the hill, and everybody's got their red and white on, and some people are wearing like the hog hats and all. Of course, all your sorority girls are dressed to the nines. They look like they're going to a club or something. But I just loved walking through the Pit
I bet that was
seeing
so much
the
fun.
food and the drink and how the tents were decorated and all the music blaring and how people were dressed. And it was just a huge party atmosphere. And that was one of my favorite things, was just walking through that. And then my next favorite tradition, and I know most colleges do this, is the marching band would come out on the field and they would form an A, a big huge A, and then players would run down both legs of the A at the same time, and they'd be like, "Welcome your Arkansas Razorbacks," and of course you get chills, you know, they build it up, and there's this huge jumbotron, and anyway, and then sometimes they would even have jets do a flyover, like the military do a flyover. But I love those goosebumps I got at the beginning of the game when you knew the marching band was going through the legs of the A. You knew those players were going to be on the field any minute, and then they would run on the field with, you know, and everybody'd stand and cheer, and there'd be smoke, and it's a lot of fun. Football games are a lot of fun.
I'm so glad that was one thing I wanted to get across to our listeners was what it's like to be at a game and why there is so much fun and why it's so exciting. And you did a really good job of just kind of bringing that whole vibe of that whole party atmosphere. It's almost like it's just a way for people to bond together. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so I had asked you what traditions you remember when you're at U of A. So one of the traditions was the A.
Yeah, the A, the planes flying over, the Pit, everybody having their tent set up down in the parking lot, which was called the Pit. Just things like that.
And was there anything during the game that you remember?
Well, I will say this. You know, every time. That's an Arkansas Razorback first down. So every time you get a first down, the whole crowd says first down. And then, of course, every time you score a touchdown, you do the Woo Pig Suey chant. And I don't know. There's a lot, but those are the main ones that stick out. We should probably mention here, too, that it's been more than a few years. It's probably been a decade now. But we actually got a chance to go on a trip. It's called, is that coming up?
No, it was my next question.
I
didn't mean to
I was going to bring up that one of the highlights of my life is we both went on this trip. I heard about it on the radio. I was listening to like a sports center type deal, and they said, hey, this is a once in a lifetime for women only. It's called Behind the Red Curtain. We just want some of our female fans to get to go on this trip, and you're going to get to go tour the stadium and meet some the coaches and Clint Sterner.
Lots of former coaches.
Yeah, former coaches, and see the facilities, and Clint Sterner and David.
But I can never remember his name.
I can't think of his last name. He's the one that actually came up with the design for our mascot, and he also played back in the day for the Razorback. They were like our host, and
Clint Sterner was a former
Razorback
quarterback. Number 14.
And, because I had his jersey.
I had his jersey. That's how I
that's right.
That.
You had his jersey, number 14. really nice guy. That was a blast. I had so much fun on that trip. Tell them who all we got to meet.
Oh gosh, so we got to meet Ken Hamilton, who was a former football coach back in the 70s, I believe, and
80s.
Oh, was it 80s? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What did you say, Ken? What?
Ken Hamilton? He's a local person.
Yeah,
here in
he's a dentist.
Hatfield.
Ken Hatfield.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Ken Hatfield.
I say Ken Hamilton a lot, so he just came to my mind. We got to meet Ken Hatfield, former coach.
And we have a picture of you with Ken.
Yes, I love that picture. And then, of course, Clint Sterner. We got to have our picture made with him.
That's one of my favorite, most treasured photos. It's you and me and Clint Sterner, and the football field and the stadium are behind us.
We're up on top of the roof.
Yes.
And the football field's behind us. And by this point, we had got to talk to him quite a bit. And we're like, hey, Clint, come over here and get our picture with. And he was super nice.
It was just very bittersweet to me because I could see my dorm from there, Brexon.
Okay.
So I could see my dorm. And what was bittersweet, like I told you earlier, here I am in my dorm at the rec room, wanting to be at the football game. And like I said, I think it was Barry Lunny was the quarterback at the time. But I'm like, here I am standing with the guy, Clint Sterner, who was actually playing, and I was stuck in that rec. And I just think I felt like I was a special, I'm going to cry now. I almost felt like it was a special blessing because I feel like, I know it's stupid. It's a first world problem.
No.
I feel like I missed out on so many of those football games, and God redeemed it, and He let me spend that time with Clint, and he was such a nice guy. And get our picture made with him. That just meant so much to me.
You're telling me this because I never saw it through that lens.
Yes, because I literally could see Gregson out of the corner of my eye.
I'm gonna cry.
I know. And then like you said, Clint's such a nice guy.
Yes.
And we're like, hey, can we get our
so
picture
God
made?
was like, okay, Joy, not only did you have to miss all these games, I'm gonna let you meet these guys in person.
And Clint Sterner was always, not idolized him, but I loved watching him play. He was such a good player. And I always wanted to meet him, but I was just too shy. I'm not one of these people that will go up to somebody after a game and try to get an autograph.
Yeah, and I never will.
And I never will.
I don't want to bother people.
Yeah, we don't like to bother people. But I always kind of felt like I was watching him from a distance, and I always just admired. He was just a good player. And of course, like I said, I always had a crush on him because I thought he was so cute. He's just a good old Texas boy,
Yeah.
He's from...
But you're right. I mean,
But the fact that we got to hang out with him a little bit and have our picture made was very special to me.
Yeah, we rode a bus with them from Little Rock to Fayetteville.
Oh, I forgot.
The trip we left from. It's funny.
I forgot. We had to drive to Little Rock.
Closer to Fayetteville than we do Little Rock, and we drove to Little Rock and left
to come back to Fayetteville.
Yeah. But,
so not only were we getting to tour the stadium, but that's like my old stomping grounds.
Yes.
And getting to see the campus. But I've been to that stadium many times, but I had never got to see the players' room.
If I remember correctly, we got to go in the locker rooms. Of course, we toured the whole stadium. We walked around the whole thing.
We got to see the coach. Who was the head coach when we did this tour?
Petrino.
Petrino?
Yes, because
it wasn't Houston Nutt.
So no, because Bobby Petrino, they said, well, normally we would let y'all go watch them practice.
Oh, that's right.
They said, but Petrino likes closed practices and he doesn't want any distractions.
I forgot about that.
So he was a great coach, but that's a whole other story.
I'll tell you who else we met and we have our picture made with.
I was getting ready to say that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, is this a twin moment?
Frank Broyles.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't know Frank Broyles, he was the athletic director at Arkansas for years and years. Was he a player on the national championship
I want to say he was with Jerry Jones, right?
Or was he a coach?
I was thinking Jerry Jones and Frank Broyles. I may be wrong, but there's definitely a connection there somewhere with that championship
he definitely
team
has
from
a
the
history
50s.
with Arkansas football. According to a lot of people, he has done tons of stuff for the Arkansas Razorback program. But anyway, we got to meet Frank Broyles and have our picture made with him, and I thought that was pretty cool.
And it was funny because every time they would never tell us. Everything was a secret. They wouldn't tell us.
Everything was a big production.
They wouldn't tell us who any of the speakers were, and they would say, and then all of a sudden they bring them out. It's Frank Broyles.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, and everybody
be
clapping, and I know, and we met all the media personalities.
Oh yeah, like Bo Mattingly.
We met anyone that was a sportscaster or anything to do with
there was
the
a guy
media.
named Aaron something that I liked.
Yes,
and
they took us to some really good restaurants where we got to listen to the sports guys talk.
Oh.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, and the other thing I remember is on the way down that we got to play football. They asked us football questions, and I remember I didn't know a single answer.
Oh yeah, they were asking all these different football, and I was like, oh, here I am calling myself a football fan. I don't think I know any. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I knew any of them.
Okay, I got to ask you this, and then we're done with then it's time for trivia. Okay, I don't remember what part of the stadium we were in, and we were with the group, but you and I held back because there was a little area that was glassed off, and it had football helmets.
Yeah, and I had all the SEC teams in their football helmets.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, why there was a Florida helmet there. So
because they had one to represent every team in the SEC conference.
Okay, so we literally stopped by the Florida helmet, you and I, and you started trying to make some gesture to me.
I made my arms out. I made my body look like a T.
Yes.
And then I acted like I was shooting a bow. And then I was so embarrassed because we looked up and Clint Sterner we were supposed to be going into the film room or whatever. Yes. We had a surprise speaker. Do you remember the story?
Yes.
And he was like, come on, guys, get in here.
Yeah, he goes, girls, come on. It was like we were being scolded.
Get your butts in here or whatever. I mean, he was nice about it, but I was embarrassed because they were waiting on us.
So I was cracking up.
Tebow.
Yeah, it was so. I'm just so glad you remember that because I was hoping you would, and I just remember you were trying to say Tim Tebow, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Because I couldn't figure it out. So
I just remember being embarrassed because I looked up and he was like holding the door, and everybody was in the film room but us, and we had to run in there really fast. And the surprise speaker was Ken Hatfield. I believe.
Yes, yeah. So we got to sit in that film room. That was pretty cool. But anyway, my point is,
anyone else we met?
There was, but I can't really remember.
I know. Frank Groles, Ken Hatfield, Clint Sterner.
Yeah,
those are the biggies.
I really can't remember. Yeah. But anyway, my point is that even then we were talking about Tim Tebow, and here we are
that's
today.
That's true. I totally forgot about that.
Okay, and actually on my outline here, I said, "Do you remember the Florida helmet incident?" So this will forever be known as the Florida helmet incident. Okay, it is time for football trivia. Oh, okay, so as we've been talking about throughout the podcast, the football is full of traditions, and I found this trivia on the internet. I was just looking around yesterday, and I love what they said, Joy. They said, in the Southeastern Conference, football is king. No conference in the country competes with the kings of college football, whether that be in stadium atmospheres or trying to match colors with these uniform traditions. Nowhere is tradition more deeply rooted than in the SEC. There are hundreds of traditions that every university carries with it. Every school has its own unique entrance, post-game fight song, and pre-game call to action. The beauty of college atmospheres are that no matter where you go, there is something unique about every university in the country. But we're focusing on the SEC. So, let's see how much you know about college traditions in the SEC.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, do you know what they call the stadium at Florida?
The Swamp.
The Swamp. Okay, so at the end of every third quarter at the Swamp, the Florida Gators faithfully rock side to side and sing this jam.
Oh, no. Is it something I would know?
I didn't know this
is
until
it a rock
I read.
Song?
I didn't know this till I read Tim Tebow's book.
Okay, is it a rock song?
No. You know this.
I know they do the gator thing. You know how they do the chomper
the big chomp
with their arms, but I didn't know they sang a song after the third quarter.
I didn't know this. This is the first I've ever heard.
Okay, no, I do not know the answer.
They sing a song called "We Are the Boys from Old Florida."
Oh,
yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
So next we're going to talk about Vanderbilt, and it says that they may not have the richest football history, but they do have something very unique that they do every game. They carry on a Navy tradition by carrying a what onto the field?
Okay, I'm going to sound dumb here, but Vanderbilt's in Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a Navy school?
Well, it's named after the Vanderbilt Commodore, so there was a guy named Vanderbilt who made a fortune in shipping. So they take, because their name's Vanderbilt, they kind of just play off of him, and he was a Navy
don't know.
tycoon.
They carried a big
carry
boat.
something onto the
I
field.
guess a big boat. I don't know.
You're close. An anchor.
Oh, I almost said that.
Yes.
I really did.
Okay.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, a lot of schools have similar entrances onto the field, but none are as recognizable as the Tennessee Volunteers. They run through this giant what every game?
Oh my goodness. I do know that their end zone used to be painted like orange and white checkerboard.
I think it still might be.
And
They said it's one of the most recognizable end zones in the country.
Can I
It's the
tell?
checkerboard.
Can I tell the story?
Sure. Heck yeah.
Okay. So our brother-in-law, and he has there's 6 boys in their family, and
they're all big sports
They're all
nuts.
huge sports fanatics.
Okay.
Well, they went to see. I'm guessing. I don't know. I guess it was Arkansas versus Tennessee at Tennessee. This is years and years ago. Well, they just duck in with some of the press, pre-game, and go down, behind the scenes and all that. They just pretend they're, with the press.
Yeah.
And they're standing there on the sidelines. I don't know what all they're doing.
Well, one of them is actually
a D1 ref.
He's a D1 ref, and he knew someone there, and they said he knew one of the assistant coaches.
Oh, okay.
And he said, "Hey,"
maybe that's how they got in.
And he said, "Hey," like he was going to walk over and talk to him.
Oh,
So go from there.
Okay. So anyway, James, one of the brothers. This is how I remember it. I don't know if you remember it, but he wants to take a picture, so he steps over the rope on the end zone and starts walking across the end zone. And somebody goes, "Hey, you're walking on Rocky Top."
Yeah.
And what he didn't know is, I guess it was fresh paint.
Yes.
And he looked down, he had orange and white paint all over his tennis shoes.
Yeah.
I
And
guess
they
the
said he
paint
wears
hadn't
like a
dried.
size 14.
Yeah, he wears a size 14. And anyway, he's like, "Oh crap!" So he goes back over. But that's one of my favorite
That is one
stories.
of my favorite Tennessee stories.
Yes.
So what song do they sing sometimes?
Okay,
in
Rocky Top.
Okay, I was gonna say that's one
I
of
do
my
know
favorite
that one.
Rocky
But
Top.
as far as the entrance, I never noticed some big, huge, crazy entrance. What is it?
It's just a huge T. They run through a big.
I never even
I
noticed.
know, I didn't either.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was funny about James because they said there's James walking across the field, leaving Rocky Top, walking across Rocky Top.
That was so funny.
Now this school has one of the most coolest, in my opinion, one of the coolest traditions. Their mascot is Obby the Tiger, but however,
Okay, is it Auburn?
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
Auburn has tigers. Okay.
So I don't know at what point they do this, but at some point in the game, I don't know if it's before or what. There's something special they do. They release something. What animal do they release? I'm not saying this
for the tiger to chase. Is it for the tiger? Do they release a tiger? I don't know.
No,
A cat?
they don't release a tiger.
Yeah, seriously.
They have an eagle.
Oh, yes, it's trained. It's kind of like a falcon, and there's
Yes.
the guy. He has a thing on his arm, and it will come back and land on his arm,
Yeah.
but he's got a protective sleeve on his arm. I've
Yes.
seen that.
Starting in 2001, an eagle swoops in over Jordan-Hare Stadium, signaling the start of another Auburn Tigers football game. So it is the start of the game.
Okay.
Nova, a golden eagle, and Spirit, a bald eagle, both have soared over Auburn fans in an awesome spectacle for the Tigers faithful.
Okay.
And he says, "I'm no expert in bird law, but getting an eagle to take off, fly around, and come back to the trainer is one of the coolest things I've ever seen."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is cool.
Okay, so this next one, now this is a gimme, okay? The next cool tradition is what they do down there in Arkansas.
Okay.
What is our special cheer called?
Calling the Hogs?
Yeah, it's calling the Hogs. Woo Pig Suey rings loud and proud from Razorback Stadium during the pregame festivities, in-game, and all around campus during the year. And it's a tradition Arkansas faithful love, and it makes Razorback football unique to any other team in the SEC.
That's true.
And they also mentioned the hard hog hat that a lot of our fans wear. They said that's
Yeah.
one of the unique things that we do. Texas A&M is known for something they do the night before the game. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, okay. A&M, that's the big military school.
Yeah, Texas Aggies.
At Aggies. Is it a big bonfire?
No, they
I
may
don't
do
know.
that, but this is talking about something else.
I just know I know a lot of times when they score, all the military dudes are in their uniforms, and they'll take these it looks like white flags or handkerchiefs, and they'll wave them around when they score.
Yeah.
I always wonder what those were, if they were like handkerchiefs or flags or what. Anyway, I have no idea.
So they have what's called the midnight yell.
Oh.
And this is the night before the game. And they said they literally are able to get 40,000 people to show up the night before the game. And they practice being rowdy and cheering for the game the next day.
That is so funny.
I know. It says some 40,000 Aggie faithful descend into Kyle Field, where the 12th man, because they're known as the 12th man, because the crowd is the 12th man. Kyle Field.
Like as in Chris Kyle?
K-Y-L-E. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know.
I don't think it's named after him, but he is from Texas.
Yeah, it says the 12th man practices to give their football team one of the best home atmospheres in the SEC. Showing up in numbers like this is impressive on game day, but the night before, this is a beast of an SEC football tradition.
Wow.
I didn't know that, did you?
No.
I didn't either. Now, this next one, I know you know this one. Okay, this team has one of the cutest and cuddliest mascots of anywhere. They have a dog as their mascot. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I should have been more prepared on how I was going to ask these questions. Okay.
He is cute, Georgia.
Yeah. So Georgia's mascot is
as he's a little not a pit bull, a little bulldog.
He's a bulldog, and his name's Uga.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's I read about him. There's 5 generations. They're on the 5th or 6th generation or more.
There have been 10 Uga Bulldogs since 1956.
Okay.
And it says, raised by the Seiler family, Uga attends every Georgia football game, roaming the sidelines, making dog lovers swoon, and cheering on the Georgia football team.
Okay, I have to say, I am jealous of Uga.
Yeah, me
because
too.
You can actually go, he's cute, and you can actually go up and hug him and pet him. Well, what do we do? We have a razorback, a wild boar Tusk. It's not like you can go up and hug Tusk.
Yeah, but
he's
supposed to be mean and ferocious.
I know. He's always in a cage, and you can go look at him, but it's not like you can put your finger in there and pet him. He's probably going to bite it off. But I'm jealous of people with mascots.
I agree.
That you can actually, they're cuddly and you can pet them. But
it's funny.
Tusk, you can't really do much with. He's cool. I mean, we have a cool mascot.
And you and I have a picture in front of Tusk. Remember,
in front of his cage.
We went to a Little Rock game and we got our picture made. Yeah, it's funny because the author said you'd be hard pressed to find a more well-liked mascot in the entire nation than Uga.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Expect this tradition to go on for as long as Georgia Bulldogs play football. Yeah. Which college football team uses cowbells?
Oh my! I should know this one
because I've heard our nephew Corey, he's a huge college football fan, and I think he talks about how annoying
it
these cowbells.
Yes, and it seems like I've been at a game where they use the cowbells, and it was so annoying. I don't think it's Georgia, Florida. Who? Can you give me a hint? What's it start with?
M.
M.
Mm-hmm. We're gaining on you.
Oh, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Mississippi, yeah.
They won't understand that reference. It's from an old
Saturday Night
Live skit.
Reference, yeah.
So cowbells are it's Mississippi State.
Okay.
Cowbells are painted and decorated, and you must have your first cowbell passed down to you if you want to keep it with tradition. You can't just go buy one.
Okay.
This in their opinion, this author's opinion, this was the #1 best tradition in the SEC. Okay, during the week, it's just a beautiful patch of Mississippi land, but come game day, the people of this school come out of the woodwork to create the best tailgating tradition in the South.
Is it Oxford, Mississippi?
Why did you have to ask me that?
What? Now, what's the question?
Okay, so I'm asking you what school has the tailgating that's called, they call it the Grove.
Yes, that's Oxford, Mississippi.
So that is Ole Miss. Okay.
Yes, Ole Miss. Sorry,
I went
Ole
blank
Miss.
there for a minute. I couldn't think where it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says, so come game day, Ole Miss Rebels come out of the woodwork to create the best tailgating tradition in the South. Thousands of Rebels invite Ole Miss fans as well as visiting fans, which is cool, to join in the festivities that seem to go on forever. Southern food, live music, and hottie toddy dominate the atmosphere, and they just talk about how beautiful it is down there.
Yeah.
So I think I would love to go a tailgate at Ole Miss. I think that would be so
I think
cool.
it would be fun.
I had a lot of fun talking about Tim Tebow.
Yeah, it's making me ready for fall.
Yes.
The boys of fall is making me ready for fall and college football.
Yeah, I'm ready to watch some high school football, and I want to watch some college football. And what's really cool is, my daughter is going into the 8th grade, grade, and there's some boys in her school who are already getting recognition for their football abilities. So I told Corby, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to go to some 8th grade football games, because just before you know it, next year they're going to be they're going to be on the senior high football team, and I want to be familiar with them and root for them. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Well, thanks, Joy. I felt like this was more about reminiscing and going down memory lane.
Well,
Which I hopefully our listeners enjoyed listening to us talk about that. I did. I thought it was a lot of fun. So and you shared some really good memories with me. So this has been a fun one.
And I don't want our listeners to think, like I said, when I was in college, I didn't go to any football games that I remember. But once I was out, I have so many good memories of just, like I said, just the game. I was there at the Miracle on Markham. You know, I was there for many significant games, and I don't want to feel like I was complaining a while ago, because after I graduated, then I went to tons of football games, and I just have so many good memories of some very exciting games, and some of my favorite memories. I know this podcast is going kind of long, but do you remember when Matt Jones was the quarterback?
My favorite player to watch. Love Matt Jones.
Some of my favorite.
He did go on to play professionally.
Yes. Yeah. Some of my favorite memories are of us over here at our mother's house. Angie, me, our sisters, our mom. I can't think if Dad would have been alive then when Matt Jones was quarterback. But anyway, we would be downstairs, and 2 different games set a record for overtimes. One, they went into 7 overtimes. Was that against like Ole Miss or Mississippi State?
It seems like it was Ole Miss, but I can't remember.
Or Mississippi State was one of them. Another game went into 6 overtimes. I just remember yelling at the top of our voices and jumping up and down. And I just remember so many exciting games with like Matt Jones at the helm. And I just have so many good memories of not just going to the stadium and experiencing the traditions, but of family and all of us literally screaming at the top of our lungs.
And even to this day, occasionally, if it's going to be a really good matchup,
we'll all get together.
Hey, let's go to Angie's house. We're going to watch the game.
And we're not a quiet family. And if you like peace and quiet, you better not join us during a football game, because everyone's going to be trying to talk over each other, and we're all yelling and screaming. But it's so much fun. And those are some of my all-time favorite memories, are watching football games, not just at the stadiums, but here with the family.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. That's I'm glad you said that, because that is so true. I want to end this with a song. And so we kind of have a little local celebrity in Greenwood, and his name is Jade Burgess, and he actually, I want to say he was a quarterback for Greenwood at one time.
I believe he was a very successful football player. Now, I wasn't there yet, so I couldn't tell you all there is to know about him, but apparently he was a pretty successful. I think he has a state championship under his belt, doesn't he?
Yes, and I want to say he actually went on to play for Tulsa.
Okay, I think you're right.
Football, and so now he's got this dream. He's a singer-songwriter, and he's moved to Nashville, and he's kind of following that dream that so many people have. But he actually wrote a song called "Football Town," and he's talking about Greenwood. And
and I did listen to it a long time ago, but I'm excited that you found it, because I would like to hear it again.
I'm gonna, if you haven't looked at our website, we don't post a lot of things on there, but I am gonna post this video, and everything that you see in this video is from Greenwood, which is what we've been talking about in this. And I'm not being biased here, because I don't even know this kid really well, but I love this song. I think it's a great song. I think he's got a great voice. I think it's a great song, and that's how we are going to end the podcast. So we will see you guys next time on Twin Talk.